In Noah's time, the world had become corrupt and filled with violence and evil. God was grieved by humanity's wickedness and decided to destroy the earth with a great flood, wiping out all life. However, Noah was different. He was described as a righteous and blameless man who walked with God. God instructed Noah to build an ark, a large boat, to save himself, his family, and two of every kind of animal, one male and one female. God gave Noah precise instructions on how to build the ark, including its size and the materials to use. Noah obeyed all of God's commands. When the ark was complete, Noah, his wife, his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, their wives, and all the animals entered the ark. Then the rain began. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and the floodwaters covered the entire earth, even the highest mountains. All living creatures on land perished. The floodwaters remained for 150 days before they began to recede. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. After sending out a raven and a dove to check if the waters had receded, Noah eventually left the ark when the earth was dry. After leaving the ark, Noah built an altar and offered sacrifices to God. God was pleased with Noah's faithfulness and made a covenant with him, promising never to destroy the earth again by flood. As a sign of this promise, God set a rainbow in the sky, a symbol of his covenant with humanity.
Bible many stories, Bible many stories.
Abraham looks up at a sky full of stars as God speaks to him, promising to make him the father of a great nation. Inside their humble tent, Abraham and Sarah listen carefully as God calls Abraham to leave his homeland. Abraham, accompanied by Sarah, Lot, and their servants, sets off on a journey, leading a caravan of camels and sheep into the unknown. The caravan travels across a vast desert under a blazing sun, with Abraham confidently leading the way, trusting in God's guidance. Abraham stands atop a hill overlooking a fertile land, the promised land that God had promised him. Under a sky filled with stars, Abraham listens as God reaffirms his promise that his descendants will be as numerous as the stars. Sarah looks wistfully out of the tent, aware of her age and the long wait for a child, while Abraham remains hopeful. Three visitors, angels in disguise, arrive at Abraham's tent under a large tree, delivering the incredible news that Sarah will bear a son. Hidden behind the tent's flap, Sarah can't help but laugh at the idea of having a child at her advanced age, mixing surprise with joy. In a tender moment, Sarah cradles the newborn Isaac in her arms as Abraham looks on with deep gratitude and happiness, witnessing God's promise fulfilled. With a heavy heart yet unwavering faith, Abraham listens as God instructs him to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. Abraham and Isaac ascend a rugged mountain path. Isaac carries the wood for the sacrifice, unaware of the true test ahead. As they reach the mountain top, Isaac asks softly, "Where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" And Abraham reassures him, God will provide. In a moment filled with tension and sorrow, Abraham raises the knife, ready to obey God's command, while a silent prayer fills the air. Just as Abraham is about to act, the voice of God stops him. God say, "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." A ram is seen caught in a nearby bush, symbolizing God's provision and mercy. The mountain father and son walk down the mountain together, their expressions relieved and thankful for the divine intervention. A blessed and aged Abraham. An older Abraham sits peacefully by his tent, surrounded by his servants and loved ones, reflecting on a life filled with God's blessings. Isaac, now grown, marries Rebekah in a joyful ceremony that symbolizes the continuation of God's promise through future generations. A large, diverse gathering of people represents the nation of Israel, the descendants of Abraham, celebrating the fulfillment of God's covenant. In his twilight years, Abraham stands outside his tent, looking up at the star-filled sky, a serene smile on his face as he remembers the promise that was kept. Once upon a time in the land of Israel, there were two brave women who trusted in God, Deborah and Jael. Deborah was a prophetess and a wise judge. People came to her for advice because she followed God's guidance. At that time, the Israelites were being ruled by a mean king named Jabin, who sent his army, led by a general named Sisera, to make life hard for God's people. One day, God told Deborah that it was time to free the Israelites from Jabin's rule. So, Deborah called a man named Barak and gave him a message from God.
Take 10,000 men and go fight Sisera's army. God will give you the victory.
But Barak was a bit afraid. He told Deborah, "I'll go, but only if you come with me." Deborah agreed.
I'll come. But because of this, the honor of defeating Sisera will not go to you. Instead, it will go to a woman.
Barak and his soldiers went to battle. Just as God promised, Barak's army was winning. Sisera's soldiers were defeated, and Sisera, the mighty general, ran away to save himself. As Sisera ran, he came to the tent of a woman named Jael. Jael saw him coming and said,
Come in, my lord. Don't be afraid.
She gave him some milk to drink and let him lie down to rest. Sisera was so tired from the battle that he quickly fell asleep. But Jael knew that Sisera was an enemy of God's people, so she came up with a plan. Quietly, while he was sleeping, she used a tent peg and a hammer to defeat Sisera. She knew it was important to protect her people from such a cruel general. Later, Barak came looking for Sisera. Jael came out of her tent and said,
Come, I will show you the man you're looking for.
When Barak entered her tent, he saw that Sisera had been defeated, just as Deborah had said. That day, because of Deborah's faith and Jael's courage, God delivered the Israelites from their enemies. The people of Israel had peace for many years, and they praised God for the bravery of these two women. Lessons of faith. 1. God's faithfulness. God responded to the cries of his people and delivered them when they turned to him. 2. Obedience to God's call. Deborah followed God's instructions, even when faced with doubt from others. 3. God uses unexpected people. Jael was not a warrior, but God used her to deliver Israel's enemy. This story serves as a reminder that God can work through anyone, and that faith in his plan is key to experiencing his deliverance and victory.
Bible many stories. Bible many stories.
Once upon a time, there was a young shepherd named David who lived in Israel. One day, the people of Israel were being threatened by a giant warrior named Goliath from the Philistine army. Goliath was very big and strong, and he challenged the Israelites to send someone to fight him. The Israelites were afraid because no one was brave enough to face him. David, who was just a boy, volunteered to fight Goliath.
Don't worry about this Philistine, Goliath. I will go and fight Saul.
You're just a young boy, and he's been a warrior all his life.
I take care of my father's sheep, and whenever a lion or a bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it and rescue the lamb. The same God who saved me from the lion and the bear will save me from Goliath.
All right, go, and may the Lord be with you.
Even though he was not a soldier, David had faith that God would help him. He took only a sling and 5 smooth stones with him. When David faced Goliath, the giant laughed at him, but David wasn't afraid. He took one of the stones from his bag, put it in his sling, and swung it with all his might. The stone flew through the air and hit Goliath right in the forehead, knocking him down. The Israelites were amazed and cheered for David. David's faith and courage helped him defeat the giant and save his people. This story shows that with bravery and faith, Even the smallest person can overcome great challenges. After Moses died, Joshua became the leader of the Israelites. They were about to enter the Promised Land, but the city of Jericho, with its massive and strong walls, stood in their way. God gave Joshua specific instructions for capturing the city. When Joshua sent 2 spies to scout Jericho, Rahab hid them from the city's guards. In return, she asked the spies to spare her and her family during the attack. The spies agreed and told her to tie a red cord in her window as a sign. God told Joshua that the Israelites should march around the city once a day for 6 days. 7 priests were to carry trumpets made from rams' horns in front of the Ark of the Covenant. On the 7th day, they were to march around the city 7 times. After the 7th time, the priests would blow the trumpets, and the people would shout loudly. Something incredible happened. The walls of Jericho collapsed. Rahab and her family were saved because of her faith and courage. The Israelites charged into the city and captured it, just as God had promised. The message: trusting and obeying God's instructions can lead to amazing victories, even when the challenges seem impossible.
Bible Mini Stories, Bible Mini Stories.